The Corvan Empire's most advanced stealth vessel drifted through the empty void near the edge of human space. Commander Thale stood on the bridge. His 4 eyes focused on the sensor displays that showed nothing but darkness and distant stars. For 3 weeks, his ship had been following strange energy readings, tracking rumors of a massive human warship that didn't match anything in their military databases. The humans had been too quiet lately, and that worried the Corvan High Command. After the recent territorial expansion where humanity had claimed 12 new star systems, the silence felt wrong. Species that aggressive didn't just stop and rest. They planned their next move. "Commander, we're detecting something massive on the outer edge of our scan range," reported Lieutenant Vell from his station. The young officer's voice carried a hint of nervousness that made Thale's skin crawl. "Put it on the main screen," Thale ordered. Moving closer to the large display that dominated the bridge's forward wall, the image that appeared made every crew member on the bridge stop what they were doing. Hanging in the black void of space was a ship unlike anything they had ever seen. The human Dreadnought stretched nearly 3 kilometers from its pointed bow to its engine cluster at the stern. Where Corvan vessels were smooth and curved, designed for both beauty and function, this human ship was pure function. Angular armor plates covered its hull like scales on some ancient war beast. Weapon ports dotted its surface in patterns that spoke of careful planning and deadly intent. "What in the name of the void is that thing?" whispered Dr. Kesh, the ship's science officer. As she stared at the readings flowing across her instruments, the human ship sat motionless in space, but there was something about its stillness that felt different from a vessel at rest. It reminded Thale of a predator waiting for prey to come within striking distance. No running lights marked its position, no communication arrays swept the surrounding space for signals. It simply existed, dark and patient. "Begin deep scans," Thale ordered, settling into his command chair. "I want to know everything about that. Vessel, hull composition, weapon systems, crew size, power output, everything." Lieutenant Vell's fingers danced across his control panel, sending invisible beams of energy toward the human ship. The scanning equipment worked in silence, probing the mysterious vessel's defenses and trying to unlock its secrets. The first results made Thale's blood run cold. The hull wasn't made of standard starship materials. Layers of unknown alloys sandwiched between what appeared to be some kind of reactive armor system. The power readings showed reactor technology that shouldn't exist, generating more energy than most space stations. "Sir, I'm reading weapon signatures that don't match any known classification," Vell reported, his voice tight with worry. "The energy output suggests they could destroy a moon with a single shot." Dr. Kesh looked up from her station, her face pale. "Commander, this ship is registering as having over 50,000 crew members. That's more than most of our battle fleets carry." Thale studied the readings, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The human ship wasn't just large, it was a flying city designed for war. Multiple hangars could house thousands of smaller craft. Manufacturing bays showed signs of active production. This wasn't just a warship, it was a mobile base of operations. "What's our current distance from the target?" he asked. 12,000 kilometers, sir. Well within their weapons range if they detect us." The bridge fell silent as that fact sank in. The Corvan stealth technology was the best in the galaxy, but they were dealing with humans. The species that had gone from primitive planet-bound creatures to star-spanning warriors in less than 2 centuries. Their technology advanced so fast that intelligence reports were outdated before they reached command. "Sir, there's something else," Vell said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The ship's power signature suggests it's been sitting here for months. Just waiting." "Waiting for what?" Thale asked, though he suspected he didn't want to know the answer. "I don't know, sir. But they're not moving randomly. They're positioned perfectly to intercept any traffic between the Corvan trade routes and the neutral zone." The implications hit Thale like a physical blow. The humans weren't just building bigger ships, they were positioning them strategically. This wasn't random military buildup, it was preparation for something specific. Commander, I'm detecting similar energy signatures in 3 other star systems, reported the communications officer. It appears this isn't the only human dreadnought in the area. Thale's hands gripped the arms of his chair as the full scope of what they were discovering became clear. The humans hadn't just built one massive warship, they had built a fleet of them. And they had positioned these ships to control key strategic points throughout this region of space. Continue scanning, he ordered. I want to know everything about their capabilities before we report back to High Command. As the hours passed, the sensor data painted an increasingly terrifying picture. The human ship carried enough firepower to level entire worlds. Its shields could withstand direct hits from planet-killer weapons, and its manufacturing capabilities meant it could replace any losses in real time. But what bothered Thale most was the complete lack of response from the human vessel. Their scanners should have detected the Corvan presence by now, even through their stealth systems. Yet the dreadnought remained motionless and silent. Sir, should we move to a safer distance? Asked Lieutenant Vell. Thale considered the question. They needed more information, but getting closer to that human monster seemed like suicide. On the other hand, High Command needed to know what the humans were planning. The fate of the Corvan Empire might depend on the intelligence they gathered. Here, maintain current position, he decided. But prepare for emergency jump if they show any signs of detecting us. The human ship continued its silent vigil, waiting in the darkness like death itself. And somewhere in the back of Thale's mind, a small voice whispered that they had already been detected, that the humans were simply allowing them to watch and learn for reasons he couldn't begin to understand. The thought made his skin crawl, but he pushed it aside. They had a job to do, and the Empire was counting on them to do it well. Commander Thale stood in the center of the bridge, watching as his crew prepared the most dangerous part of their mission. The external scans had revealed the basic structure of the human dreadnought, but High Command needed to know about the crew, their capabilities, and their intentions. That meant getting inside the ship. Micro-drones are ready for deployment, sir, reported Lieutenant Vell, his fingers hovering over the launch controls. Each unit is equipped with quantum processors and full recording capabilities. The drones were no larger than insects, designed to slip through the smallest gaps in a ship's hull. Their advanced cloaking systems made them nearly invisible to most sensors, and their quantum processors could record and transmit data without detection. At least that was the theory. Deploy them in sequence, Thale ordered. I want full coverage of all major sections. Engineering, command center, crew quarters, and weapons systems. The tiny machines launched from hidden ports on the Corvan vessel, their microscopic engines carrying them across the void toward the human ship. On the bridge screens, the crew watched as the drones approached their target, searching for entry points. The first drone found a maintenance shaft near the engine section and slipped inside. The images it transmitted back made several crew members gasp in shock. The interior of the human ship was nothing like the comfortable spaces of Corvan vessels. Every surface was armored, every corridor was designed for defense. Blast doors lined the passages at regular intervals, and emergency systems were built into every wall. This isn't just a warship, whispered Dr. Kesh as she studied the images. It's a fortress designed to keep fighting even if most of it is destroyed. The second drone found its way into the crew quarters, and what it showed there was even more disturbing. The human sleeping areas were small and practical, with no space wasted on comfort. But it was the humans themselves that made the Corvan. Crew stare in horror. Every human on the ship moved with the fluid grace of a trained killer. Even the ones who appeared to be working on technical systems carried themselves with an alertness that spoke of constant readiness for combat. Their muscles were enhanced beyond normal human limits. Their reflexes were faster than should be possible, and their eyes held the cold focus of professional soldiers. These aren't normal humans, Dr. Kesh reported, her voice shaking. Their biological readings show enhancement on every level. Improved strength, faster healing, enhanced sensory perception. They've turned themselves into living weapons. The third drone penetrated the ship's medical section, and the footage it transmitted made even hardened Corvan warriors look away. Human doctors performed surgical procedures with casual efficiency, installing cybernetic implants that would kill most known species. Genetic modification chambers worked around the clock, improving already enhanced humans with new capabilities. 1. Procedure showed a human having his bones replaced with some kind of metallic compound that made them nearly unbreakable. Another showed a woman receiving ocular implants that gave her the ability to see in multiple spectrums of light. The humans weren't just using technology to build better ships, they were using it to build better versions of themselves. "Commander, you need to see this," called the communications officer. His voice tight with fear. On the main screen, a new image appeared. The fourth drone had found its way into what appeared to be a training facility. Hundreds of humans practiced combat, techniques that defied belief. They moved faster than the eye could follow, struck with force that could shatter stone, and showed no signs of fatigue even after hours of continuous exercise. But it was their weapons training that truly terrified the watching Corvan crew. The humans practiced with energy weapons that could cut through ship armor, explosives that could level buildings, and hand-to-hand combat techniques designed to kill in seconds. Every human on the ship was a one-person army, capable of taking on entire squads of enemy soldiers. "How many of them are there?" Thale asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Sir, based on the drone footage, we estimate over 50,000 combat-ready personnel," reported Lieutenant Val. "And that's just the ones we can see." The fifth drone made its way to the ship's engineering section, and what it found there made the situation even worse. The human engineers weren't just maintaining their vessel, they were constantly improving it. New weapon systems were being installed, armor was being upgraded, and shield generators were being modified for better performance. The humans had created a ship that could modify itself in real time, adapting to any threat it encountered. And the crew had the knowledge and skills to implement these changes while in combat. "Sir, I'm detecting something else in the engineering section," Dr. Kesh reported. "The humans appear to be manufacturing something, but I can't identify what it is." The drone moved closer to the manufacturing area, and the images it transmitted back showed production lines creating objects that didn't match any known technology. Sleek metal devices that pulsed with internal energy, crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around them, and mechanical components that appeared to move on their own. "Those aren't weapons," whispered the science officer. "They're something else entirely, something new." As the hours passed, the drones continued their reconnaissance, revealing more and more about the human ship and its crew. The humans had artificial intelligence systems that could think faster than organic minds, quantum computers that could process information in ways that defied understanding, and manufacturing capabilities that could produce anything they needed. But perhaps most disturbing was the discovery that the humans knew they were being watched. In several areas of the ship, crew members would pause in their work and look directly at the hidden drones, as if they could see through the cloaking systems. They never interfered with the surveillance, but their awareness was clear. "Commander, I don't think we're as hidden as we believe," reported Lieutenant Val. "The humans seem to know we're here." Thale studied the sensor readings, looking for any sign that their stealth systems had been compromised. Everything appeared normal, but the evidence was undeniable. The humans were aware of the surveillance and were allowing it to continue. "Why would they let us watch them?" he asked, more to himself than to his crew. Dr. Kesh looked up from her station with the expression of growing horror. "Maybe they want us to see what they're capable of. Maybe this is a message." The thought sent chills down Thale's spine, but he couldn't dismiss it. The humans had a reputation for psychological warfare, for using fear as a weapon more effectively than any bomb or bullet. If they were deliberately displaying their capabilities, it meant they wanted the Corvan Empire to know exactly what they were dealing with, and that thought was more terrifying than any weapon they had seen. The surveillance continued through the ship's night cycle, and what the drones discovered in the weapons sections of the human Dreadnought defied every convention of civilized warfare. Commander Thale watched in growing horror as his crew cataloged weapon systems that shouldn't exist, technologies that violated every interstellar treaty, and defensive measures that could turn entire star systems into graveyards. Sir, the humans have plasma cannons capable of sustained fire that could glass the surface of a planet in under 6 hours, reported Chief Weapons Officer Nax, his voice trembling as he read from his instruments. Their targeting systems can track and engage over 10,000 separate targets simultaneously. The drone footage showed massive weapon bays filled with devices that looked more like instruments of planetary destruction than ship-to-ship armaments. Particle beam arrays. Stretched for hundreds of meters, their focusing crystals pulsing with barely contained energy. Missile tubes the size of subway tunnels held projectiles that could crack continents, and rail guns that could accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. But it was the manufacturing capabilities that truly terrified the watching Corvin crew. The humans weren't just carrying weapons, they were building them. Automated factories deep within the ship produced ammunition, spare parts, and entirely new weapon systems around the clock. The Dreadnought could sustain combat operations indefinitely, replacing losses faster than enemies could inflict them. "Commander, you need to see this," called Dr. Kesh from her station. "The humans have weapons I don't even know how to classify." The main screen showed footage from a restricted section of the ship where human scientists worked on projects that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Containers held what appeared to be living metal that could reshape itself into any form. Energy fields contained substances that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. And research stations worked with materials that seemed to exist outside normal space-time. "What are we looking at?" Thale asked, though he suspected the answer would be something his mind couldn't fully grasp. "Based on the energy readings, I believe the humans have weaponized quantum mechanics itself," Dr. Kesh replied. These devices could alter the fundamental structure of matter at the atomic level. The implications were staggering. The humans had moved beyond conventional warfare into realms that other species couldn't even imagine. They weren't just building better guns, they were rewriting the rules of combat itself. Another drone had penetrated the ship's biological weapons section, and the footage it transmitted made several crew members leave the bridge in distress. The humans had created viruses that could adapt to any immune system, bacteria that could consume specific genetic markers, and nanomachines that could reprogram living tissue at the cellular level. "Sir, they have weapons designed to target every known species in the galaxy," reported Lieutenant Vell, his face pale with shock, "including us." The revelation hit Thale like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just been preparing for war, they had been preparing for war against everyone. Every major species, every minor civilization, every possible enemy had been studied, analyzed, and targeted with specific weapons designed to exploit their biological weaknesses. "How long have they been planning this?" he whispered. "Based on the research data we're intercepting, at least 50 years, Dr. Kesh replied, "maybe longer." The scope of human preparation was becoming clear. This wasn't a recent military buildup in response to current tensions. This was a long-term strategy that had been in development for decades. Possibly since their first contact with alien civilizations, the drones continued their exploration, revealing more horrors with each passing hour. The humans had kinetic bombardment systems that could drop tungsten rods from orbit with the force of nuclear weapons. They had gravity weapons that could create miniature black holes. They had temporal distortion devices that could slow time around enemy vessels, leaving them helpless against conventional attacks, but perhaps most disturbing was the discovery of the ship's AI weapons systems. The humans had created artificial intelligences specifically designed for combat, entities that could think and adapt faster than any organic mind. These AI systems controlled weapon networks that spanned the entire ship, coordinating attacks with precision that no biological crew could match. "Commander, I'm detecting something in the deepest sections of the ship," reported the communications officer. "The energy readings are unlike anything we've seen." The drone descended into the ship's core, past layers of armor and shielding that could withstand direct hits from planet-killer weapons. What it found there made the entire bridge crew fall silent. Vast chambers stretched into the distance, filled with what appeared to be sleeping humans. But these weren't crew members in stasis. They were soldiers, each one enhanced and modified for specific combat roles. Some were built for zero-gravity warfare, others for planetary assault, and still others for tasks that defied classification. "How many of them are there?" Thale asked, dreading the answer. "Sir, based on the size of the chambers and the density of the storage units, we estimate over 2 million enhanced soldiers in stasis," Lieutenant Vell reported. "And that's just what we can see. The human ship wasn't just a dreadnought, it was a mobile army. The crew they had observed was just the tip of the iceberg. Hidden in the depths of the vessel was a force large enough to conquer entire star systems, waiting to be awakened when needed." "Sir, there's more," Dr. Kesh called out. "The humans have manufacturing systems that can produce more soldiers. They're not just carrying an army, they can build one." The drone footage showed cloning facilities, genetic modification chambers, and cybernetic enhancement stations working in perfect coordination. The humans had created a self-sustaining war machine that could grow stronger with each battle, learning from every encounter and adapting to every threat. "Commander, we're detecting similar facilities throughout the ship," reported Nax. "They can manufacture weapons, ammunition, vehicles, and personnel as needed. This ship is completely self-sufficient." The full scope of what they were witnessing began to sink in. The humans hadn't just built a warship, they had built a mobile civilization designed for endless war. Every system, every technology, every aspect of the vessel was focused on one goal: the complete destruction of any force that stood against them. "Sir, I'm reading power fluctuations in the ship's core," Lieutenant Vell reported. "It looks like they're powering up additional systems." The sensor readings showed energy levels rising throughout the human vessel. Weapons that had been dormant suddenly came online, manufacturing systems increased their output, and the massive engines began generating more power than most stars produced. "They're preparing for something," Thale realized. "But what?" The answer came in the form of a transmission that filled the bridge with the sound of a human voice speaking perfect Corvan. The words were calm, almost casual, but they carried a weight that made everyone on the bridge freeze in terror. "Unknown vessel, you have been conducting unauthorized surveillance of a Terran Defense Force asset. You have 30 seconds to decloak and surrender, or we will consider your actions an act of war." The countdown had begun. The human voice echoed through the bridge of the Corvan stealth ship, each word delivered with the casual tone of someone discussing the weather. But the message itself sent waves of terror through every crew member present. Commander Thale felt his blood freeze as the implications sank in. 25 seconds, the voice continued, and now Thale could hear the mechanical precision behind the words. This wasn't just a human speaking, it was a human augmented with technology that allowed perfect communication across species barriers. "Sir, they've locked onto our position," reported Lieutenant Vell, his voice cracking with fear. "Our stealth systems are still active, but they know exactly where we are." The tactical display showed the massive human dreadnought turning toward them with movements that should have been impossible for something so large. The ship moved through space like a living creature, its engines firing in perfect coordination to bring its weapons to bear on the Corvan vessel. 15 seconds, the voice announced. Thale's hands shook as he stared at the sensor readings. The human ship was powering up weapon systems that could vaporize his vessel in seconds. But more terrifying was the realization that the humans had been aware of their presence all along. Every scan, every drone, every moment of surveillance had been permitted, allowed, orchestrated. "Commander, we're detecting movement throughout the human ship," Dr. Kesh reported, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thousands of crew members are moving to battle stations." The drone footage showed corridors filled with enhanced humans moving with mechanical precision. They didn't run or show signs of panic. They simply moved to their assigned positions with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine. Within minutes, the entire ship had transformed from a sleeping giant into a fully operational war machine. 10 seconds. The voice continued. The weapon systems of the human Dreadnought came online with a sound that the Coven sensors translated as a low, threatening hum. Energy readings spiked beyond anything in their databases, and the space around the human ship began to distort from the massive power output. "Sir, they're targeting our engines, weapons, and life support systems simultaneously," reported Nax, his voice tight with professional terror. "One shot and we're dead in space." Thale realized that the humans weren't just threatening destruction, they were offering capture. The precise targeting suggested they wanted prisoners, not debris. The thought was somehow more terrifying than instant death. 5 seconds, the voice announced. On the main screen, the human Dreadnought had completed its turn and now faced them directly. The massive ship hung in space like a predator studying its prey, weapons charged and ready to fire. But it was the complete stillness that made Thale's skin crawl. The humans weren't excited or angry, they were simply waiting. 4 seconds. The bridge crew looked to their commander for orders, but Thale found himself paralyzed by the scope of what they faced. The humans had turned their surveillance mission into a demonstration of power, showing the Corvan Empire exactly what they were dealing with. 3 seconds. The tactical display showed more contacts appearing around the human ship. Smaller vessels, fighters, and support craft materializing from what had appeared to be empty space. The humans had been hiding an entire fleet in the area, waiting for this moment. 2 seconds. Thale's hand moved toward the communications console, but he hesitated. Surrendering would mean capture, interrogation, and possibly death. But continuing to fight would mean certain destruction for his ship and crew. 1 second. The decision was made for him when the space around the Corvan ship suddenly filled with objects that hadn't been there moments before. Tiny missiles, each one no larger than a person's fist, surrounded them in a perfect sphere. The humans had deployed their weapons so quietly that the sensors hadn't detected them until it was too late. "Time expired," the voice announced with the same calm tone, but instead of firing, the human ship simply waited. The message was clear. They could have destroyed the Corvan vessel at any moment, but they chose not to. This was a demonstration, not an execution. The communications console crackled to life with the same human voice. "Commander Thale of the Corvan vessel Silent Hunter, you will decloak your ship and prepare to receive a boarding party. Any attempt to flee or resist will result in your immediate destruction." The use of his name and ship designation sent another wave of terror through the bridge crew. The humans knew exactly who they were dealing with, had probably known from the moment they entered the system. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked Lieutenant Vel. Though his voice suggested he already knew the answer, Thale looked around the bridge at his crew, seeing the fear in their eyes. They were military personnel, trained for combat and prepared for death. But this wasn't combat. It was a demonstration of absolute superiority by a species that had moved beyond conventional warfare. "Decloak the ship," he ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. The stealth systems powered down, and the Corvan vessel became visible against the starfield. Immediately, the sensors showed the human ship moving closer, its massive bulk dwarfing their own vessel. Support craft swarmed around both ships, creating a defensive perimeter that would prevent any escape. "Boarding party launching in 60 seconds, the human voice announced. "All crew members will remain at their stations and offer no resistance. Any aggressive action will be met with lethal force." The next minute passed in silence as the Corvan crew watched the human boarding craft approach. The vessel was sleek and angular, designed for combat rather than transport. As it attached to their airlock, the crew could hear the sound of cutting tools preparing to breach their hull. "Sir, they're not using our airlock," reported the security officer. "They're cutting through the hull directly." The message was clear. The humans didn't need permission to board. They would take what they wanted. The sound of metal being cut away echoed through the ship, followed by the hiss of equalizing atmosphere. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors as the boarding party made their way to the bridge. The sound was mechanical, artificial, suggesting that the humans were wearing powered armor or had enhanced themselves beyond normal biological limits when the bridge doors opened. The sight that greeted the Corvan crew was everything they had feared. The human soldiers were giants, standing nearly 3 meters tall in their powered armor. Their faces were hidden behind helmets that glowed with electronic displays, and their weapons were clearly designed to kill anything they encountered. The leader of the boarding party removed her helmet, revealing a face that was undeniably human but enhanced beyond normal limits. Her left eye had been replaced with a cybernetic implant that glowed with electronic light, and her skin showed the telltale signs of genetic modification. "Commander Thale," she said, her voice carrying the authority of absolute power. "I am Major Reed of the Terran Defense Force. Your vessel and crew are now under our protection." The word protection sent chills down Thale's spine. The humans weren't talking about capture or imprisonment. They were talking about something else entirely. "You have seen our capabilities," Major Reed continued. "You have witnessed our preparations. Now you understand what humanity has become." She moved to the center of the bridge, her presence dominating the space. "Your mission was never secret, Commander. We have been watching you watch us. Everything you have seen, every piece of intelligence you have gathered, was carefully planned." For your eyes, the realization hit Thale like a physical blow. They hadn't been conducting surveillance. They had been receiving a message. The humans had orchestrated every moment of their mission, revealing their capabilities in a calculated display of power. "Why?" he managed to ask. Major Reed's enhanced eye focused on him with mechanical precision. "Because your empire needed to understand what they are dealing with. Humanity is no longer the primitive species you remember. We have evolved beyond your comprehension, and we wanted to make sure you delivered that message personally." Major Reed stood in the center of the Corvan bridge, her enhanced eyes scanning each crew member with mechanical precision. The other human soldiers remained at the entrances, their weapons lowered but ready. The atmosphere was tense but not with the violence of combat. This was something else entirely. "Commander Thale," Major Reed said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Your empire has been evaluating humanity for some time, watching our expansion, measuring our capabilities, deciding whether we deserve a place in your galactic order." Thale felt his throat tighten. The Major was stating facts that were classified at the highest levels of Corvan intelligence. How much did the humans know about their government's plans? "We wanted to make sure you reached the correct conclusion," Reed continued, moving to the main display where images of the human Dreadnought still filled the screen. "Everything you have seen today was carefully orchestrated. Your surveillance mission was permitted, encouraged, and guided from the moment you entered this system." Dr. Kesh looked up from her station, her face pale with shock. "You knew we were here the entire time?" "We detected your vessel 3 days before you detected." "Hours," Reed replied. "Our sensor technology is considerably more advanced than your intelligence reports suggest. We allowed you to observe our capabilities because we wanted your empire to understand what humanity has become." The human major moved to the tactical display, her fingers dancing across the controls with practiced ease. The screen showed not just the single dreadnought they had been observing, but dozens of similar vessels throughout the region. "The ship you have been studying is one of 47 dreadnoughts currently deployed in this sector," Reed explained. "Each one is capable of sterilizing entire star systems. Each one carries enough firepower to destroy your home fleet. And, each one is crewed by enhanced humans who have been preparing for galactic war since we first learned we weren't alone." Lieutenant Vell stared at the display in horror. 47 ships like that? In this sector alone, Reed confirmed. "We have similar deployments throughout human space. Your empire has been wondering why we've been so quiet lately. This is why. We've been building, preparing, evolving." She turned back to Commander Thale, her cybernetic eye glowing with electronic fire. "Humanity learned a valuable lesson from our first contact with alien civilizations. We learned that the galaxy is not a peaceful place. We learned that species survive by being stronger than their enemies, not by being more civilized." The Major's words carried the weight of absolute certainty. This wasn't boasting or posturing, it was a simple statement of fact delivered by someone who had helped make it reality. So we adapted, Reed continued. We enhanced our bodies, improved our minds, and built weapons that could destroy gods. We turned ourselves into the most dangerous species in the galaxy because we understood that anything less would mean extinction. Dr. Kesh looked around the bridge at the human soldiers, her scientific mind trying to process what she was seeing. The genetic modifications, the cybernetic enhancements, the weapons technology. You've been preparing for war against everyone. Not war, Reed corrected. Deterrence. We built these capabilities so we would never have to use them. But if forced to fight, we will do so with absolute commitment and overwhelming force. The Major walked to the communications console, her movements fluid and predatory. Your mission here is complete, Commander. You have gathered the intelligence your Empire needs. Now you will return to Corvin Space and deliver our message to your leadership. What message? Thale asked, though he suspected he already knew. Humanity is no longer asking for permission to exist, Reed replied. We are not seeking approval from the established powers. We are not requesting a place at the galactic table. We are taking our position by right of strength, and we are prepared to defend it against any threat. The human major moved back to the center of the bridge, her presence commanding the attention of every person in the room. Your Empire will have a choice to make. You can accept humanity as an equal partner in galactic affairs, or you can test our resolve. But understand this. If you choose the second option, you will discover that we have prepared for every possible scenario. She gestured to one of her soldiers, who stepped forward with a small device. This contains complete technical specifications for our defensive systems, deployment patterns for our fleets, and strategic assessments of every major power in the galaxy. Your intelligence services will find it very informative. Thale stared at the device in shock. You're giving us your military secrets? We're giving you enough information to understand what you're dealing with, Reed corrected. The systems described in those files are already obsolete. By the time your scientists finish analyzing them, we will have moved on to technologies they cannot imagine. The demonstration of confidence was more terrifying than any weapon. The humans were so far ahead of everyone else that they could afford to reveal their capabilities without fear of compromise. Major, Dr. Kesh said, her voice shaking, why are you telling us this? Why reveal your plans? Reed's enhanced eye focused on the Corvan scientist with mechanical precision. Because knowledge prevents war. If your Empire understands what we are capable of, they will make rational decisions about how to proceed. Ignorance leads to conflict, and conflict leads to extinction. She moved toward the airlock where her boarding party had entered, but paused at the entrance. Oh, and Commander? The ship you observed today? It's not even close to our most advanced vessel. The technologies you witnessed are standard equipment for patrol craft. Our real warships are considerably more impressive. The casual delivery of that information sent waves of terror through the Corvan crew. If what they had seen was considered basic technology, what were the humans capable of at their peak? You will be escorted to the edge of the system, Reed announced. From there, you will return to your Empire and deliver our message. Any attempt to deviate from this course will result in your immediate destruction. The human soldiers began. Filing out of the bridge, their movements coordinated and professional. Major Reed was the last to leave, but she stopped at the doorway and turned back to face Commander Thale. One final thing, Commander. Your Empire has been wondering about human intentions, about whether we plan to expand our territory or challenge the existing order. The answer is simple. We will expand as far as we choose, and we will challenge anyone who stands in our way. The age of asking permission is over. After the humans left, the bridge fell into stunned silence. The crew stared at each other, trying to process what had just happened. They had come to gather intelligence on a single human warship and had instead received a demonstration that changed everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. Sir, what do we do now? Asked Lieutenant Vell, his voice barely above a whisper. Thale looked at the device the humans had given them, then at the tactical display still showing the massive Dreadnought and its escort fleet. The scope of human preparation was staggering, but what truly terrified him was the casual confidence with which they had revealed it. "We return home," he said finally, "and we deliver their message exactly as they gave it to us." The journey back to Coven space passed in relative silence. The human escort maintained a respectful distance but never wavered from their position. There was no doubt that any attempt to deviate from the prescribed course would end in immediate destruction. As they traveled, Dr. Kesh worked to analyze the data the humans had provided. What she found confirmed their worst fears. The technical specifications showed weapons technology decades ahead of anything the Corvan Empire possessed. The deployment patterns revealed a military buildup that dwarfed anything in recorded history. And the strategic assessments demonstrated that the humans had studied every major power in the galaxy and developed specific plans to counter each one. "Commander, this data suggests that humanity has been preparing for galactic war for over 50 years, she reported. "They've identified the weaknesses of every major species and developed weapons specifically designed to exploit them." The implications were staggering. The humans hadn't just built a military force, they had built a machine specifically designed to destroy any opposition. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier had been created with the goal of achieving absolute victory against any possible enemy. When they finally reached Corvan space, the escort peeled away without a word. The human ships simply vanished back into the void, leaving the silent hunter alone with its terrible cargo of knowledge. The debriefing at Corvan High Command lasted for 3 days. Intelligence officers grilled every crew member about what they had seen, analyzed every piece of data they had gathered, and studied the technical specifications the humans had provided. The conclusion was unanimous and terrifying. "Humanity has evolved beyond our ability to contain or control," Admiral Vex announced to the assembled council. "They possess technology we cannot match, capabilities we cannot counter, and a strategic vision that encompasses the entire galaxy." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. For centuries, the Corvan Empire had been one of the dominant powers in the galaxy. They had controlled trade routes, influenced smaller species, and maintained the balance of power through careful diplomacy and superior technology. Now all of that was meaningless. "What are our options?" asked Councillor Wrath, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer. "We have 3 choices," Admiral Vex replied. "We can attempt to form an alliance with humanity on their terms. We can try to unite the other major powers against them. Or we can prepare for a war we cannot win." Commander Thale stood to address the council, his experience giving weight to his words. "Honored councilors, I have seen what humanity has become. They are no longer the primitive species we first encountered. They have turned themselves into something beyond our understanding, something that views the entire galaxy as their rightful domain." He paused, looking around the room at the faces of the most powerful individuals in the Corvan Empire. "The human major told me that this was a message, a demonstration designed to help us make informed decisions. I believe she was telling the truth. They want us to understand what we're dealing with so we can choose our response wisely." "And what response would you recommend?" asked the High Chancellor. Thale thought about the enhanced humans he had seen, the weapons that could destroy worlds, and the casual confidence with which they had revealed their capabilities. "I recommend we accept their partnership and pray they never have reason to see us as enemies." The vote was unanimous. 3 days later, the Corvan Empire sent an official communication to human space, formally recognizing humanity as an equal partner in galactic affairs and requesting negotiations for a mutual defense treaty. The response came within hours. It was brief, professional, and carried an undertone that suggested the humans had expected exactly this outcome. "The Terran Defense Force accepts your proposal. A diplomatic mission will arrive at your capital within the week to begin negotiations. We look forward to a long and productive relationship." As news of the decision spread throughout Corvan space, there were mixed reactions. Some saw it as a wise strategic move, others as a humiliating surrender. But those who had seen the intelligence Reports understood the truth. Humanity had given them a choice and they had chosen survival. The galaxy would never be the same, and everyone knew it. The age of human dominance had begun not with conquest or war, but with a simple demonstration of power that left no doubt about who now controlled the fate of civilized space. In the depths of space, the human dreadnought Retribution returned to its patient vigil, waiting for the next species that would need to learn the same lesson. The humans had made their point and the galaxy had listened.